Hey Gateway, Ron Marsh here. This is your daily dose. Today I want to ask the question, how has your life changed because of what you've gone through? This last season has been difficult for a lot of people, has changed our lives in many ways, but the reality is this season is going to be changing soon. Some of you know this, things are opening up. It's exciting for work and for recreational activities and even church life. That slowly the country is opening up, but as we come out of this, the challenge for us is how do we learn what we need to learn for the time that we've been in? Because I know this, in life what happens is God will use a crisis to get our attention, but oftentimes we as people have a short memory span and we happen to really let go of that tension and that pressure that's there when actually it eases. C.S. Lewis wrote in The Problem of Pain about this very subject. I just want to bring it back to our minds today. He says, "I'm progressing along in the path of life in my ordinary, contentedly fallen and godless condition, absorbed in a merry meeting with my friends for the morrow or a bit of the world that tickles my vanity today, a holiday or a new book, when suddenly, a stab of abdominal pain that threatens a serious disease, or a headline in the newspapers that threatens us all with destruction," sound familiar? "Sends the whole pack of cards tumbling down." This is what's happened for many of us. The coronavirus, along with some other things that are happening in our culture, has brought the cards tumbling down, and all of a sudden we're faced with a crisis. He says, "At first I'm overwhelmed, and all my little happinesses look like broken toys." Isn't that a great picture? "Then slowly and reluctantly, bit by bit, I try to bring myself into the frame of mind that I should be in at all times. I remind myself that all these toys were never meant to possess my heart." Isn't that true? "That my true good is in another world, heaven, and my only real treasure is Christ." And then he says, "And perhaps by God's grace, I succeed. And for a day or two, I become a creature consciously dependent on God and drawing its strength from right sources. But the moment the threat is withdrawn, my whole nature leaps back to the toys." So this is the challenge. How do we keep ourselves from leaping back to the toys? I know we want normal. For some of us, that means comfort, right? Some of us, that means I want my vacation that I planned. And for some of us, the real challenge is not going back to that. In fact, normal is not all that attractive. We actually want something different and transformative. Look, God is after your heart, and He will allow these crises, these times of difficulties to come, to get your attention, just like C.S. Lewis says here, to get your attention. And the reality is that we have a quick response, as he goes on to say in The Problem of Pain. We have a quick response that says we'd like to just go back to the way it was, and we find ourselves, again, going right back to those old toys, those old ways. Well, I want to encourage you, there is a way to actually gain everything you can from this time. It's to just stop and say, wait a minute, God, before I get into the future and what that holds for me, what is it that you want me to learn right now from this time? And maybe just look at 3 areas in your life. One area would be your finances. Maybe some of you've learned in a hard way that you should have taken the advice to save up 6 months of your income so that you could save up for a rainy day like this time. Maybe for others, it's just, I need self-control in my spending. I've spent way too much before. I want to readjust that in my life. And maybe it's debt, just getting rid of some debt that you just don't need. Listen, Proverbs 25:28 says, "Like a city whose walls are broken down is a man who lacks self-control." Actually, the word again, a person who lacks self-control, these walls, that's safety and security, that's what that represents. When a person lacks self-control, there's not that safety and security. It's broken down. Many of you have experienced that. Maybe it's in finances, but maybe it's also in your relationships. Maybe it's during this time of shelter in place, all of a sudden your relationship with your children is not what you want it to be. Or maybe it's a spouse, and all of a sudden it's raised some real issues and concerns for you, and you realize you need some help. Or maybe it's extended family in relationship, and God is saying, hey, I want you to work on this. Or maybe even thirdly, spiritually. Maybe you've never really been that connected to God, or you've fallen away in some ways, just gotten a little cold to the things of Him. But this crisis, all of a sudden, things that look like the end of the world to you, you've all of a sudden turned your heart towards God and you begin praying more. Well, it could be any of those three areas. I just want to encourage you today, take a moment, take a minute and say, Lord, how is my life better? How can I be better for this opportunity that you've given me to actually change and grow in the way that you want me to become the person that you want me to be. And that's my prayer for you, that you'll discover what that is and that you'll just engage with the growth area that God wants you to engage with. Just partner with Him and say, okay, God, I'm going to do this. I'm going to trust that you're going to help me change this area of my life. That's what's been brought to my attention, and that's what I'm choosing to focus on. God bless you, and we will see you next time.